The young girl lived in a small town where life was simple but not always easy. Her family was not rich, and they could not afford many luxuries. But they had one thing that filled their home with joy: music. Ever since she could remember, she loved the sound of piano notes. The soft, gentle melodies felt like a friend who could understand her feelings without words. When she was little, she would sit by the old piano her parents had bought secondhand, running her small fingers over the keys and trying to copy the tunes she heard on the radio or in the town hall where music classes were sometimes held. She didn't have a teacher at first, but she had curiosity and determination. Every morning, she woke up early, often before the sun had risen, and sat at her piano. The room was quiet except for the sound of her practicing. Sometimes the neighbors could hear her playing, and some would pause outside the window just to listen. Music for her was not just a hobby. It was a way to escape from the world around her. She could be anywhere she wanted in her mind, traveling to grand concert halls, exploring new emotions, or imagining stories through the songs she played. She had a natural talent, but talent alone was not enough. She struggled with difficult pieces, sometimes repeating the same part over and over until her fingers ached. Her parents watched her with a mixture of pride and worry. They wanted her to follow her passion but also worried about the challenges she might face. Sometimes, she would look at her reflection in the piano's polished surface and wonder if she could ever be truly great. Could someone notice her? Could she make her dreams come true? These thoughts made her both nervous and excited. Word about her talent began to spread slowly. One day, a music teacher from a nearby city heard her playing by chance while visiting a relative. He was impressed by her ability to feel the music, the way she could play soft notes that made listeners lean in, and loud, strong notes that commanded attention. He told her parents that she had the potential to go far if she was trained properly. The family felt a mix of pride and anxiety. They knew opportunities might come, but they were also aware that the journey would be tough. Despite the challenges, she kept practicing every day. She learned to read music from old books her parents managed to borrow from a local library. Each new song was a challenge and a joy. She learned not only to play the notes but to understand the emotion behind them. Her favorite moments were when she could close her eyes and let her fingers move naturally, as if the piano itself was guiding her hands. In those moments, she felt free. Her dedication caught the attention of local performers. Small events in town invited her to play, and people were always amazed at her skill. Even though the audiences were small, she felt nervous and excited every time she performed. The applause made her heart swell, but it was not the applause she loved the most. It was the feeling that she had shared something from her soul and that others could feel it too. Each performance, no matter how small, strengthened her confidence and fueled her desire to grow. One evening, as she was practicing a particularly challenging piece, her father came into the room with a smile. He had been following news about famous musicians visiting the country. He mentioned that one very well-known musician, someone who had performed all over the world and was admired by millions, had heard about talented young pianists in small towns. She looked up at him with wide eyes, barely able to hide her excitement. Could someone so famous actually hear about her? The idea was almost unbelievable, yet it filled her with hope. The next few days were full of anticipation. She practiced harder than ever, imagining what it would be like if the famous musician came to see her play. She worked on precision, on emotion, and on confidence. Sometimes she stumbled and felt frustrated, but she never gave up. Her mother would remind her that mistakes were part of learning, and her father would encourage her to enjoy the process, not just focus on the outcome. Slowly, she began to understand that music was not only about perfection. It was about expression, passion, and connection. Meanwhile, the town buzzed with curiosity. People started talking about the possibility of the famous musician visiting. Some were skeptical, thinking it would never happen. Others were excited and tried to encourage her. She felt both pressure and motivation. She knew that if the opportunity came, she wanted to be ready, not just to impress someone famous, but to show herself how much she had grown. Late at night, she would sit by the piano alone. The house was quiet, and the only sound was the piano and her breathing. She imagined herself on a big stage, with hundreds of people listening, the famous musician watching every move. The thought made her heart race, but also made her determined. She reminded herself that the music came from her heart, and if she stayed true to it, the rest would follow. Her hands sometimes trembled, but the notes always found their way, guided by her emotion and focus. Her journey was not only about music, it was about growth. She learned patience, perseverance, and self-belief. Each day she faced challenges, whether it was a difficult piece, a moment of self-doubt, or the fear of performing in front of others. Each challenge taught her something new about herself. She began to understand that the journey mattered as much as the goal, that every small step was part of the larger dream she carried in her heart. Finally, the news arrived that made her both nervous and excited. The famous musician was planning to visit the area and would be looking for young talent. Her parents encouraged her to prepare, reminding her that this could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She felt a mixture of joy, fear, and determination. The piano was her friend, her teacher, and her partner in this journey. She promised herself that when the moment came, she would give everything she had. She continued to practice day and night, perfecting every piece she could. She also focused on the feeling behind each note, making sure that her music could tell a story. She knew that talent alone might not be enough. She had to let her soul speak through the piano. She imagined the famous musician sitting in the audience, listening closely, and she felt both pressure and motivation. Every mistake was a lesson, and every success was a step closer to her dream. As the day of the visit approached, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness that she had never felt before. The town seemed to hold its breath, and she could feel the weight of everyone's hopes on her young shoulders. She took deep breaths, reminding herself that the piano was her voice, and she just needed to let it speak. The long hours of practice, the challenges, and the small victories all led to this moment. She was ready to show the world, and most importantly, herself, what she was capable of. The young girl sat by her piano one last time before the famous musician arrived. Her fingers danced over the keys, not with perfection, but with heart and soul. She closed her eyes and let the music flow naturally. The room seemed to glow with the sound, and she felt a deep connection with every note she played. In that moment, she realized that no matter what happened, she had already grown into the musician she wanted to be. She was ready for the challenge, ready to face the famous musician, and ready to let her piano tell the story of her journey so far. The day finally came when the famous musician was going to visit. The girl woke up earlier than usual, her heart beating faster than ever before. She could hardly eat breakfast, too busy thinking about the music she was going to play. Her parents tried to calm her, reminding her to breathe and take one step at a time. They reminded her that she had worked hard for this moment and that no matter what happened, they were proud of her. The girl nodded but could not hide her excitement and nervousness. The small town seemed unusually busy that morning. Word had spread that a world-renowned musician was coming to see the young pianist who had been practicing tirelessly for years. People stopped by to wish her luck, offering smiles and encouragement. She appreciated their support but felt the pressure growing heavier. She wanted to make everyone proud, but most importantly, she wanted to stay true to herself and her music. When the musician arrived, the town hall was prepared for a small but formal meeting. Chairs were set up, the piano was polished, and a soft hush fell over the room. The girl entered the hall, her hands trembling slightly as she walked toward the piano. She took a deep breath and reminded herself of all the hours she had spent practicing, all the mistakes she had learned from, and all the small victories that had brought her to this point. She felt a mixture of awe and fear as she saw the famous musician, someone whose performances she had admired from afar for years. He smiled warmly at her, a kind of smile that was encouraging but also challenging, as if to say, "Show me what you have." The musician explained that he wanted to test her skill and understanding of music. He did not want a simple performance. He wanted to see her interpret a complex piece that required not only technical skill but emotion, creativity, and courage. He handed her the sheet music and explained a few key points, but he left the rest to her interpretation. The girl looked at the notes, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear. This was more difficult than anything she had ever tried before. But deep down, she felt ready. She had spent years preparing for this kind of challenge without even knowing it. As she sat down, she could feel the eyes of the musician, her parents, and a few local visitors on her. The room was quiet except for the soft rustle of paper and the faint creaking of the piano bench. Her fingers hovered over the keys, hesitant for a moment. Then she took a deep breath and began to play. At first, the notes were cautious, careful, almost tentative. But as she continued, something changed. The music began to flow more naturally. She felt herself becoming one with the piano, each note carrying the emotion she had been holding inside for years. The piece was challenging. There were moments when the fingers moved too fast, passages that required precise timing, and chords that demanded strength and accuracy. She stumbled slightly at first, but quickly corrected herself, refusing to let a small mistake disrupt the flow. She reminded herself that the music was more than perfection. It was about feeling and expression. The musician watched intently, occasionally nodding as she passed particularly difficult sections. He seemed impressed, but he did not smile yet, keeping her on edge, challenging her to give even more. As the piece progressed, she began to feel confident. Her fingers moved with purpose, her body swaying gently with the rhythm, and her heart beating in time with the music. The audience in the room was silent, captivated by the performance. Even her parents could hardly breathe, afraid to disturb the delicate moment. She could see the musician's eyes following every movement, his expression thoughtful, almost as if he were trying to read her soul through the piano. She realized that this was more than a test. It was a conversation between her, the piano, and someone who truly understood music. Midway through the piece, there was a particularly difficult section with rapid runs and complex chords. Her hands moved faster than she thought possible, and she could feel the tension building. But she did not panic. She focused on each note, each transition, letting her training and intuition guide her. Her body seemed to move automatically, a perfect balance between control and freedom. The musician leaned forward slightly, his eyes widening in surprise and admiration. He had not expected such a young girl to handle the piece with such skill and confidence. She could feel the energy in the room, the silent support from everyone watching, and it gave her strength. As she neared the end of the piece, she felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Every muscle in her body had been engaged, every thought focused on the music. She played the final notes with a flourish, letting the last chord resonate and fade into silence. For a moment, there was no sound except the echo of the piano and the beating of her heart. Then the room erupted in applause. The musician stood and clapped slowly, deliberately, giving her the recognition she had worked so hard to earn. His eyes were filled with genuine admiration, and his smile was warm, almost proud. The girl felt tears in her eyes, but they were not tears of sadness or fear. They were tears of relief, pride, and joy. She had faced her biggest challenge yet and had succeeded. The musician approached her and spoke softly, praising not only her technical skill, but also the emotion and maturity in her performance. He said that she had a rare gift, a combination of talent, dedication, and passion that could take her far in the world of music. Her parents hugged her tightly, overwhelmed with pride and happiness. After the performance, the musician spent some time talking to her about music, technique, and interpretation. He offered advice, guidance, and encouragement. The girl listened carefully, absorbing every word. She realized that this moment was not the end of her journey but a beginning. She had shown herself and the world what she could do, and now doors were opening that she had never imagined. The musician invited her to perform at a special event in a larger city, an opportunity that could change her life forever. As the day came to an end, the girl reflected on everything that had happened. She thought about the long hours of practice, the struggles, the doubts, and the small victories that had brought her here. She realized that the journey was as important as the destination. Every mistake had taught her something, every challenge had strengthened her, and every note she had played had carried a piece of her heart. She felt grateful for the support of her family, the encouragement of the town, and the guidance of the musician. That night, as she sat by the piano alone, she played softly, letting the music flow without pressure or expectation. She smiled to herself, knowing that she had faced a challenge that once seemed impossible and had emerged stronger and more confident. The experience had shown her not only her talent, but also her courage, determination, and ability to rise to any occasion. She knew that the path ahead would have more challenges, but she also knew that she was ready. The piano was her voice, her friend, and her guide, and she was prepared to let it carry her wherever her dreams might lead. After the famous musician left, the girl felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The praise she had received filled her with confidence, but it also made her think about the challenges that still lay ahead. She knew that being recognized was only the beginning. Talent alone was not enough. She needed discipline, perseverance, and continuous improvement to truly reach her potential. Her parents encouraged her, reminding her that every great musician faced moments of doubt and difficulty. They emphasized that learning and growing were lifelong journeys, and she was just starting to understand how much work lay ahead. The following days were filled with reflection and preparation. She went back to her piano, practicing each day with renewed determination. She revisited the piece she had played for the musician, exploring new ways to express emotion and improve technique. Each time she played, she noticed small details she could enhance. The softness of a note, the flow between chords, or the feeling she conveyed through the rhythm. It was not about playing perfectly, but about conveying her heart and soul through the music. She realized that true mastery came from understanding both the technical and emotional sides of music. Word of her performance spread quickly, reaching other musicians and local performers. Invitations to small events and recitals came in, and while they were exciting, they also brought new pressures. She wanted to make a good impression every time, but she also learned that every performance was an opportunity to learn and grow. She practiced balancing confidence with humility, understanding that even the best musicians were always students of their craft. As she continued to improve, she faced new challenges. Some pieces were much harder than anything she had attempted before, demanding speed, precision, and endurance. Her fingers ached, her mind felt exhausted, and at times she felt frustrated when she could not reach the perfection she imagined. But she learned to take breaks, to be patient, and to see mistakes as lessons rather than failures. She discovered that perseverance was just as important as talent, and that true musicianship required not only skill but also resilience. Her parents and teachers supported her at every step. They reminded her that it was okay to be nervous, that every great performer had felt fear, and that courage was not the absence of fear but the willingness to continue despite it. Their guidance helped her develop confidence and emotional strength, which began to show not only in her playing but in her approach to life. She learned to embrace challenges, understanding that each obstacle was an opportunity to grow. The girl also began studying other aspects of music. She listened to recordings of famous pianists, trying to understand their interpretation and style. She attended local concerts, observing how performers connected with the audience and expressed emotion through their playing. She read about the lives of musicians, learning how dedication, practice, and perseverance had shaped their careers. Each new experience added to her understanding, giving her insight into how she could develop her own style and presence as a performer. As time passed, she faced moments of self-doubt. Sometimes, when she struggled with a difficult passage or felt overwhelmed by expectations, she questioned whether she was ready for bigger opportunities. But each time, she reminded herself of the famous musician who had believed in her, of the applause and encouragement she had received, and of the countless hours she had dedicated to her craft. These thoughts gave her strength and renewed her commitment to continue improving. Her performances at local events grew in popularity. People came not only to hear the music but to witness the talent and passion of a young girl who played with such depth and feeling. She began to notice the subtle impact her music had on listeners, the way they held their breath during quiet moments, the smiles that spread across faces, the occasional tear in response to an emotional passage. These reactions reminded her that music was more than notes on a page. It was a way to connect with others, to share feelings, and to communicate in a universal language. One day, she received a letter from the famous musician. He had remembered her performance and wanted to give her another opportunity, a chance to play at a larger event in a nearby city. The letter filled her with a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was a chance to take a significant step forward, to show her skills to a wider audience, and to learn from an even greater challenge. Her parents and teachers celebrated with her, offering encouragement and advice. They reminded her to stay focused, to play with heart, and to trust in the years of preparation that had brought her to this moment. In the days leading up to the event, she intensified her practice. She carefully worked on the new pieces, paying attention to both technical skill and emotional expression. She imagined herself on the stage, feeling the music flow through her, and connecting with every person in the audience. She visualized the famous musician watching, not with judgment, but with encouragement, and this image gave her courage. Every practice session, every corrected mistake, every moment of focus prepared her for the challenge ahead. During this time, she also learned the importance of rest and balance. She realized that overworking herself could lead to mistakes and fatigue, so she made time for quiet reflection, walks, and listening to music she loved. These moments of calm allowed her mind and body to recover, and often, new ideas for interpretation and expression came during these peaceful times. She understood that being a musician required both discipline and care for oneself, and that growth happened not only through practice but also through rest and reflection. The girl began to develop her own style. While she respected the traditions of music and the interpretations of past masters, she found ways to add her own voice to each piece. She experimented with dynamics, tempo, and phrasing, discovering that small changes could dramatically affect the emotion conveyed. She learned to listen to herself, trusting her instincts and feelings as much as her technical knowledge. This growing self-awareness gave her performances authenticity and depth, making each note more meaningful. As the day of the big event approached, she felt a mixture of excitement and anticipation. She packed her music, double-checked her practice notes, and mentally prepared herself for the journey. Her parents reassured her, reminding her that this was not just about impressing others, but about sharing her love of music and showing herself what she was capable of. They reminded her that every step of the journey was valuable, and that success was measured not only by applause but by growth and experience. On the way to the event, she reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the small-town piano, the long hours of practice, the challenges, and the encouragement of those who believed in her. Each memory strengthened her resolve. She knew that the road ahead would have more challenges, more moments of doubt, and more opportunities to grow. But she also knew that she was ready to face them, armed with talent, dedication, and a deep love for music. The girl arrived at the venue and took a deep breath. The room was larger than any she had played in before, filled with an audience waiting to hear her. She felt nervous, but she also felt a sense of purpose. She sat at the piano, placed her fingers on the keys, and allowed herself to connect with the music. The audience waited in silence, and she began to play. The first notes were tentative, but soon her confidence grew. She felt the music flow naturally, as if the piano itself was guiding her. Every note carried emotion, every chord spoke to the audience, and every movement expressed her heart. Throughout the performance, she remained focused, aware of every detail but not distracted by the size of the venue or the expectations of the audience. She let the music lead her, trusting in her training, her instincts, and her passion. The audience listened in awe, captivated by her skill and emotion. The famous musician watched from the front row, nodding with approval, clearly impressed by her interpretation and presence. She realized that this performance was not just about showing skill, but about sharing herself through the music, and that realization made the experience even more meaningful. By the end of the performance, the room erupted in applause. The girl felt a rush of relief and joy, knowing that she had given her best and connected with her audience. The famous musician approached her, offering words of praise and encouragement. He spoke about her growth, her interpretation, and her ability to communicate through music. The girl listened, absorbing every word, and felt a deep sense of pride and motivation. She understood that this was another step in her journey, a challenge she had met successfully, and a foundation for future growth. As she left the venue, she reflected on everything she had learned. She thought about the hours of practice, the struggles, the lessons, and the moments of triumph. She realized that music was more than just notes. It was a journey of self-discovery, growth, and connection. She felt grateful for the guidance of the famous musician, the support of her family, and the encouragement of everyone who had believed in her. She knew that the path ahead would continue to challenge her, but she also knew that she had the strength, determination, and passion to keep moving forward. The day of the big performance arrived, and the girl could feel her heart beating faster than ever. She had practiced for weeks, preparing for this moment, but now that it was here, a wave of nervous excitement washed over her. She looked around the large hall, seeing rows of seats filled with people waiting to hear her play. The lights shone brightly, and the stage seemed much bigger than anything she had experienced before. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that she had prepared for this moment, and that her music would guide her. As she walked onto the stage, she felt the eyes of the audience and the famous musician on her. The quiet hum of anticipation made the air feel heavy, and her palms were slightly sweaty. She could hear the soft rustle of programs, the distant coughs, and the faint whispering of people settling into their seats. She approached the piano, her fingers brushing the polished keys, and she felt a strange mix of calm and energy. This was the moment she had imagined countless times, and now she was here. She sat down, adjusted the bench, and closed her eyes for a moment. She let her thoughts drift, focusing on the music rather than the crowd. She remembered all the hours of practice, the mistakes she had learned from, and the pieces she had mastered. Each note she played had meaning, each chord carried emotion. She reminded herself that music was not about perfection, but about expression, and that thought helped calm her nerves. She took a deep breath and let her fingers hover over the keys. The first notes were gentle and deliberate. The sound filled the hall, soft but clear, capturing the attention of everyone listening. The audience leaned forward slightly, drawn into the music. She felt a connection forming between her and the people in the room. Each note seemed to speak directly to them, telling a story without words. She closed her eyes and let the music flow naturally, her fingers moving over the keys with a combination of skill and feeling. As she continued, the piece became more complex. There were rapid passages that demanded precision, chords that required strength, and transitions that needed perfect timing. Her fingers flew over the keys, and she focused intently on every movement. She felt the music flowing through her, guiding her hands and telling her where to go next. The nervous energy she had felt before transformed into determination and confidence. She knew that she had the ability to play each note with intention and emotion. Midway through the performance, the music reached a challenging section. It was fast, intricate, and demanded complete focus. Her fingers moved quickly, almost instinctively, and she felt the adrenaline helping her maintain control. Every chord, every run, every note had to be precise, and she concentrated on both accuracy and expression. She felt the eyes of the audience and the musician on her, but instead of pressure, it gave her motivation. She wanted to show them the depth of her skill and the passion she had for music. The famous musician watched carefully, leaning forward slightly. He could see the dedication and talent in her performance. Her hands moved with confidence, her body swayed naturally with the rhythm, and her expression reflected the emotion of the piece. He noticed the subtle touches she added, the way she emphasized certain notes and phrasing, and how she brought life to the music. It was clear that this young girl was not just playing the piano. She was communicating through it. The audience was silent, captivated by the performance. Some had tears in their eyes, others smiled softly, and many were completely absorbed in the sound. The girl could sense the connection forming with each person. She felt their attention, their emotions, and their appreciation, and it strengthened her focus. The music became a conversation between her, the piano, and the audience, and she allowed herself to fully immerse in it. She was no longer nervous. She was present, confident, and expressive. As she approached the final section, the music grew intense and dramatic. She had to balance power and delicacy, speed and control. Every note had to be precise, every pause intentional. She felt the adrenaline and excitement rising, but she remained focused, letting the preparation and practice guide her. Her fingers moved swiftly and accurately, and she felt a sense of accomplishment with every measure she completed. The audience could feel the intensity and emotion, and the room seemed to hold its breath. The last few notes required both strength and finesse. She concentrated deeply, channeling all her energy and emotion into each final movement. As she struck the last chord, she allowed it to resonate fully, letting the sound fill the hall and fade naturally. For a moment, there was complete silence. The only sound was the echo of the piano and her own heartbeat. She opened her eyes slowly, taking in the audience and the famous musician, both watching her with admiration. Then, the room erupted in applause. People stood, clapped, and cheered, overwhelmed by the skill, emotion, and presence she had displayed. The famous musician stood as well, clapping slowly and deliberately, giving her the recognition she had earned. His smile was warm and proud, a silent acknowledgement of her talent and dedication. She felt a wave of relief and joy wash over her. She had faced a challenge greater than any before, and she had succeeded with grace and confidence. Her parents rushed to the stage, embracing her tightly. They were overwhelmed with pride, their hearts full of love and admiration for their daughter. They told her how proud they were, how her performance had moved them, and how she had shown courage and skill beyond her years. She smiled, feeling the warmth of their support and realizing that their encouragement had been an important part of her journey. Their belief in her had given her strength when she doubted herself. After the performance, the famous musician approached her. He spoke softly but clearly, praising her technique, expression, and ability to convey emotion through music. He told her that she had a rare gift, a combination of talent, hard work, and passion that could take her far. He encouraged her to continue learning, practicing, and growing as a musician. His words filled her with motivation and confidence. She realized that this moment was not just about recognition, but about guidance and opportunity. The girl spent time after the performance reflecting on the experience. She thought about all the hours she had practiced, the challenges she had overcome, and the lessons she had learned. She understood that every step of her journey had prepared her for this moment. She realized that the path of a musician was not always easy, but it was rewarding. The joy of creating music, connecting with others, and expressing her emotions made every challenge worthwhile. She also reflected on the support she had received from her family, teachers, and community. Their encouragement and belief in her had given her the strength to face difficult challenges. She realized that success was not achieved alone, and that having people who care and support you is invaluable. She felt grateful for everyone who had been part of her journey and for the opportunities that had come her way. The experience taught her the importance of preparation, focus, and confidence. She learned that talent alone was not enough, and that dedication, perseverance, and emotional connection were equally important. She also learned to embrace challenges as opportunities to grow, to trust her instincts, and to play with both skill and heart. These lessons would stay with her as she continued on her journey as a musician. As the night ended, she returned home feeling fulfilled and inspired. She played a few more pieces on her piano, this time for herself, letting the music flow freely without pressure or expectation. She smiled, thinking about the performance, the applause, and the encouragement she had received. She knew that this was only the beginning, and that many more challenges and opportunities awaited her. But she also knew that she had the courage, dedication, and passion to continue growing, learning, and sharing her music with the world. After the performance, the girl felt a mix of relief, pride, and anticipation for what came next. She had proven to herself and everyone watching that she had the talent, dedication, and emotion required to play at a high level. Yet, she knew the journey was far from over. The famous musician had shown interest in her abilities and hinted at future opportunities. But the real test was yet to come. She had to continue refining her skill, exploring new music, and facing even greater challenges. This thought both excited and motivated her. The musician reached out to her with an invitation to attend a masterclass, a rare opportunity to learn directly from someone with decades of experience and recognition. The girl felt nervous but thrilled. She knew this would be an environment filled with talented students and demanding exercises, and she wondered if she could match their skill. Still, she was determined to make the most of the chance. Her parents encouraged her, reminding her that learning from others was one of the best ways to grow, and that even the most skilled musicians were always learning. At the masterclass, she observed other students performing, each with their own strengths and styles. Some were fast and technical, others expressive and emotional. She felt a mix of admiration and nervousness as she realized the level of talent around her. When her turn arrived, she took a deep breath and walked to the piano. She remembered the advice of the famous musician. Focus on both precision and emotion. Let the music speak, and trust in your preparation. As she began to play, she felt the room listening intently, each note carrying the emotion she intended. The piece she performed was complex, with rapid runs, intricate chords, and subtle dynamics. There were moments when her hands almost faltered, and her heart pounded with intensity. But she focused, letting muscle memory, years of practice, and her emotional connection with the music guide her fingers. She felt a sense of flow, as if the piano and her mind were in perfect harmony. The room was silent except for the music, and she could feel every listener absorbing the performance. She realized that true skill was not just about hitting the right notes, but about bringing the music to life. As she neared the most challenging section, her mind raced. This part required speed, accuracy, and control, all while expressing emotion. She felt the pressure but embraced it. Every measure required focus, every chord demanded strength, and every transition tested her endurance. She played with determination, channeling all her energy into the performance. The famous musician watched closely, analyzing her technique and expression, occasionally nodding in approval. He was impressed with her ability to maintain both precision and emotional depth under such pressure. Midway through the piece, she reached the section that many students found impossible. Rapid sequences of notes, requiring exact finger placement and timing, had caused others to stumble. Her own hands moved swiftly, but she could feel the tension building. Her fingers began to tire, and a momentary lapse could ruin the performance. She took a mental breath, focusing on one note at a time, letting the rhythm guide her, and her hands followed instinctively. She felt a rush of exhilaration as she completed the difficult passage flawlessly, knowing she had overcome what many could not. The audience reacted subtly, with quiet gasps and murmurs of admiration. The other students watched with awe, some exchanging impressed glances. The girl felt a surge of confidence but remained focused. She knew the performance was not over, and that she had to continue with the same energy and emotion until the final note. She reminded herself that the goal was not only to impress others, but to communicate the story within the music, to convey feeling and connection. This thought kept her grounded and fully present in the moment. As the piece progressed toward its conclusion, the music demanded a combination of power and delicacy, speed and precision. Each note was deliberate, each pause intentional. The room was completely absorbed, and the girl felt the collective focus of the audience on her performance. She allowed herself to become one with the music, letting every emotion she had experienced over the years pour through her fingers. The crescendo built, and she played with intensity and control, feeling the music resonate not only in the room but within herself. The final measures were the most demanding. They required precision, timing, and complete awareness of every movement. She focused deeply, allowing her training and intuition to guide her hands. Her fingers moved quickly, accurately, and with emotion, and she felt the culmination of years of practice and dedication. The last chord lingered, resonating through the hall, and she held it for a moment, letting the sound fade naturally. Silence filled the room for a heartbeat before the audience erupted in applause. The applause was overwhelming, a mix of admiration, surprise, and genuine appreciation. The famous musician stood and clapped slowly, with deliberate attention, clearly impressed by her ability to handle such a challenging piece. He smiled warmly, acknowledging not just her skill but the courage and passion she had shown. The girl felt a wave of relief and pride, realizing she had surpassed her own expectations and risen to a challenge that many would have feared. After the performance, the musician spoke with her privately. He praised her technical skill, her interpretation, and the emotion she conveyed. He explained that the difficult section she had mastered was one of the most challenging parts of the curriculum, and that few students could play it successfully under pressure. He offered guidance on further refining her technique, suggested new pieces for growth, and encouraged her to continue exploring her unique musical voice. The girl listened attentively, absorbing every word, feeling inspired and motivated to keep learning. The experience taught her valuable lessons about resilience, focus, and confidence. She realized that talent was only the beginning, and that true mastery required continuous effort, courage, and emotional connection. She learned to embrace difficult challenges, to trust herself, and to stay present in the moment. The success she experienced was not just about recognition, but about proving to herself that she could rise above fear and pressure, and that she was capable of great things. Returning home, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the hours of practice in the small room with the old piano, the challenges she had faced, the mistakes she had learned from, and the moments of triumph that had strengthened her confidence. She realized that every step had been essential, and that growth came not only from success but also from struggle. The path of a musician was demanding, but it was also rewarding, and she felt grateful for the opportunity to follow her passion. Her parents and teachers celebrated her achievement, expressing pride and admiration. They reminded her that this was a milestone, not the end, and that continued dedication and learning would open even more doors. The girl felt a sense of responsibility, knowing that she had potential and that she wanted to use it fully. She resolved to continue practicing, exploring new music, and challenging herself with increasingly difficult pieces. She understood that the journey of a musician was lifelong, and that each performance, each lesson, and each challenge contributed to her growth. Over the following weeks, she focused on both technical skill and emotional expression. She explored new composers, experimented with interpretation, and sought feedback from teachers and mentors. She practiced diligently but also allowed herself moments of reflection, understanding that balance and rest were important for growth. She discovered new depths in her playing, learned to convey subtle emotions, and developed a unique style that reflected her personality and experiences. The turning point had taught her that she was capable of more than she had imagined. She realized that fear could be transformed into motivation, that pressure could be used as energy, and that challenges could reveal hidden strength. The experience had changed her perspective, making her more confident, focused, and aware of her potential. She understood that each new opportunity would bring challenges, but she was ready to face them with courage, skill, and passion. As she continued to grow, she remembered the advice and encouragement of the famous musician. She understood the importance of guidance, mentorship, and learning from others who had achieved mastery. She also remembered the small moments of practice, the quiet reflections, and the determination that had brought her to this point. Every note she played was a combination of skill, emotion, and experience, and she embraced the responsibility and joy of sharing her music with others. Her journey was far from over, but the turning point had solidified her confidence and commitment. She knew that future challenges would arise, each demanding effort, focus, and emotional depth. But she also knew that she had the ability to meet them, to grow from them, and to continue expressing herself through the music she loved. The experience of rising to the challenge and succeeding had strengthened not only her skill but also her belief in herself, setting the stage for even greater achievements in the future. After the turning point at the masterclass, the girl felt a new sense of confidence and determination. She had faced one of the most challenging moments of her life and had succeeded, proving not only her skill but also her courage and focus. The experience stayed with her, a reminder of what she could achieve when she combined preparation, passion, and determination. She knew that this was just the beginning and that more challenges and opportunities awaited her. Each would require dedication, perseverance, and a willingness to grow. In the days that followed, invitations began to arrive for recitals, workshops, and collaborations. She found herself performing in larger venues, meeting other talented musicians, and learning from experienced teachers. Each new experience pushed her limits, forcing her to refine her skills and explore new aspects of music. She approached every opportunity with focus and enthusiasm, remembering the lessons she had learned from the famous musician and the challenges she had already overcome. Her parents continued to support her, attending every performance they could and helping her manage the demands of practice, school, and travel. They reminded her to balance dedication with rest and reflection, to enjoy the journey as much as the success it brought. She appreciated their guidance and found comfort in their presence, knowing that their support was a source of strength. The encouragement she had received from her family, teachers, and community reminded her that she was not alone, and that each achievement was built on the support of those who believed in her. The girl continued to practice diligently, not only perfecting her technique but also exploring her personal interpretation of music. She experimented with different composers, styles, and arrangements, learning how to convey emotion and tell stories through her playing. She realized that music was a language, and that her ability to express herself through it was a gift she could share with the world. Each new piece became a journey, a challenge to understand its nuances and make it her own. One day, the famous musician contacted her again, this time inviting her to perform at a special event in a major city. The opportunity was extraordinary, and she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She understood that this performance could open doors to even greater opportunities, but it also came with high expectations. She embraced the challenge, preparing carefully and focusing on both technical skill and emotional expression. She knew that she had grown through her previous experiences, and that she was ready to rise to this occasion. As the day of the performance approached, she reflected on how far she had come. She remembered her early days of practicing on the old piano in her small town, the hours of dedication, the mistakes that taught her lessons, and the small victories that built her confidence. She thought about the first time she met the famous musician, the initial challenge, and the subsequent growth that had brought her to this moment. She felt gratitude for every experience, knowing that each had shaped her into the musician she had become. On the day of the event, she arrived at the venue early. The stage was large, with bright lights and an audience that included music enthusiasts, critics, and fellow performers. She felt a flutter of nerves, but she reminded herself of her preparation and the lessons she had learned. She focused on the music, not on the audience or the expectations, and took a deep breath before stepping onto the stage. As she approached the piano, she felt a sense of calm mixed with excitement, ready to share her music with the world. The performance began, and she allowed herself to be fully present in the music. Each note, each chord, and each pause was deliberate, carrying the emotion and intention she wished to express. She felt a connection with the audience, sensing their attention and engagement. The famous musician watched from the front row, a calm and encouraging presence, observing her skill, focus, and expression. She played with confidence, letting the music flow naturally, and felt a sense of joy and fulfillment that only performing could bring. As the piece progressed, she encountered challenging sections that demanded both precision and emotional depth. She approached each with focus and determination, relying on her training and experience to guide her fingers. She could feel the tension and excitement in the room, but she used it as energy to enhance her performance. The audience was captivated, listening intently to every note and expression. She realized that music was not just about technical skill. It was about communication, connection, and storytelling. She poured her heart into each measure, allowing the music to convey her emotions and experiences. Midway through the performance, she reached the most demanding section. Her fingers moved swiftly and accurately, maintaining control while expressing emotion. She felt exhilaration and concentration, knowing that this was the moment where her preparation and courage would shine. The audience reacted with admiration, and she sensed their awe and appreciation. The famous musician leaned forward, nodding slightly, acknowledging the skill and passion she displayed. She continued with focus, letting the music guide her and trusting in her ability to overcome the challenge. As the performance approached the conclusion, she played with intensity, grace, and emotional depth. Every note and chord was intentional, every transition smooth and expressive. The crescendo built, and she delivered the final measures with precision and passion. The last chord resonated through the hall, lingering before fading naturally. Silence filled the room for a heartbeat. Then the audience erupted in applause, some standing, others cheering, all moved by her performance. She felt a wave of relief, pride, and joy, knowing she had given her best and connected with everyone listening. The famous musician approached her after the performance, offering praise and encouragement. He spoke of her growth, her unique interpretation, and the way she conveyed emotion through her playing. He highlighted her ability to rise to challenges, handle pressure, and express herself authentically. She listened attentively, feeling inspired and motivated to continue learning and growing. His words reminded her that success was not a destination, but a journey of continuous effort, dedication, and passion. Following the event, invitations continued to arrive for performances, collaborations, and educational opportunities. She performed in different cities, shared her music with diverse audiences, and met other talented musicians who inspired her to keep improving. Each new experience brought challenges, learning, and growth. She approached every opportunity with focus, dedication, and an open heart, understanding that her journey as a musician was ongoing and full of potential. At home, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From her first days of playing on the old piano in her small town, to being recognized by a famous musician, to performing successfully in larger venues, she realized how much she had grown. She understood that every practice session, every mistake, and every performance had been an essential part of her development. She felt gratitude for the support of her family, teachers, and mentors, and for the opportunities that allowed her to follow her passion and develop her talent. She continued to practice, explore new music, and challenge herself with increasingly difficult pieces. She also focused on developing her personal style and interpretation, learning to express her emotions and connect with audiences through her music. She understood that music was not only about skill, but about expression, communication, and sharing a part of herself with the world. Each performance became an opportunity to grow, learn, and inspire others. Over time, she became known for her talent, dedication, and emotional depth. Audiences were captivated by her performances. Critics praised her skill, and she received invitations to perform at prestigious venues. Yet she remained humble, focused on continuous learning and improvement. She remembered the early days, the challenges she had faced, and the guidance she had received, understanding that her journey was a combination of hard work, passion, and support from others. Looking back, she realized that the journey had been about more than recognition or success. It had been about growth, resilience, and self-discovery. Every challenge had taught her patience, perseverance, and confidence. Every performance had strengthened her connection with music and with the audience. Every step had shown her that dedication, passion, and belief in oneself could overcome obstacles and unlock potential. She understood that her music could inspire, move, and connect people, and that this was the true reward of her journey. As she sat at her piano in quiet moments, playing for herself, she smiled, knowing that her journey was ongoing. She felt gratitude for the experiences, challenges, and opportunities that had shaped her. She felt excitement for the future, knowing that new challenges and opportunities awaited. And she felt confidence, knowing that with dedication, passion, and heart, she could continue to grow, share her music, and inspire others. Her journey was far from over, but she was ready for every note, every challenge, and every audience she would encounter.